Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to the flagship edition of the PWTorch Fireside Chat here on the PWTorch YouTube channel. Thanks for being here with us today. It's great to be here as always. Tyler, my partner in crime as usual. What's up, man?
Hey, good. Good to be here. Good to. I see Zach's here. I'm very glad. I said to be continued on Twitter last night, so I'm glad you're here, Zach.
Yes.
And you, Zach Haynor, too. But yeah.
Well, thank you. Zach B spells his name incorrectly, so you gotta have the right Zach on every once in a while. But we've got a great show lined up for you guys today, and a very special guest, friend of the show, and just a tremendous wrestling analyst in her own right, Stephanie Chase. Stephanie, welcome on into the Fireside Chat. Appreciate you being here.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I watch every episode. I just I hope this isn't like, I don't know, when they bring in like Terry Reynolds to manage a tag team and it all goes downhill and runs the dynamic,
Oh gosh, no, that absolutely not. We've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and I think you're going to be able to bring a really good, just great perspective on some of our stuff, and you were in my neck of the woods this past week too. So this is exciting.
I was at the Chicago Dynamite. You weren't there. You could have been sat next to me, booing the Elite.
I know. I know. The Wednesday Dynamites in Chicago are always tough because of the darn holiday the next day. Yeah. So in theory, they're a good idea, but for the last, I don't know, whatever it is, 4 years running, I've, family commitments and whatnot, those pesky family commitments. Maybe next year. But, all right, guys. Well, a lot to get to. Hello to everybody in the chat. Tracy, hi. Thanks for listening. Zach, of course. Sean, great to have you join us. I think we got to start the show this week with pretty much, I think what was going into yesterday's episode of Dynamite, a really key kind of piece of the AEW as a company and promotion puzzle. And that was like the first promo by MJF as world champion. He won the world title at Full Gear, as we all know, and we didn't see him live last week. And so this week was the first kind of moment where you're going to get a sense of like what that title run is going to be like. How is he going to be acting as a character? He's been kind of like, hit or miss, babyface, heel. And then obviously the way he won the title was very heelish. So I think we have to start there. And so I let's just kind of go around the horn first. And Stephanie, since you're a special guest, we'll start with you. What did you think of the first night at the office for MJF yesterday as the world champion in AEW?
Well, I thought he had a lot of work to do. He's now definitely a heel, and so therefore we got probably the most boring promo he's ever done. Like there's nothing to like cheer here promo. And he was back to the very like cheap heat, like you're all you all suck stuff. But I didn't think it was that bad. I know some people thought it was bad. I didn't think it was that good either. I just feel like it's hard because he's a heel now, but it's never going to be the same as it was. It's never going to be the same as it was before that Dynamite in LA, where he just like riffed on Tony Khan and called him out and called him a mark, and then people started cheering him. And now he has to work against it, and he was coming off like this very convoluted storyline, which obviously wasn't the direction they were initially meant to go. They were initially meant to go with Punk, then they had to turn it into something else, and we got this thing with Moxley and William Regal in it, and there was this email that William Regal sent, and then it all like tied back together here so they could be like, look, we told this amazing story with an ending. Like the email was so relevant, and it's like, yeah, but you could have told like a more basic story that might have been better, where we didn't have to have all this MJF, is he a face, is he a heel stuff, and all this like just muddying like the waters of what was like an amazing heel character. Like you don't get in wrestling anymore what MJF had before he did that promo in LA, like people actually hating someone because he never dropped characters, so he never gave you like a redeeming real life feature. You know, he's not like Adam Cole on Twitch where you can be like, well, he's a lovely guy, but we'll play along. You know, he was just this like hateable person. And yeah, they did all this and it ended up with like a story that I think was just like a little too complicated. Like a little too cute. And even, you know, at the scrum after Full Gear, when he came out full character, cut that promo, I was like, I fooled you all, like I'm really a bad guy. And it was funny because like I was at the Dynamite the week before that, and where he did like a weird after show promo where he just like kissed up to Tony Khan, and it was like, totally bizarre. And I filmed that and put it on Twitter. And I remember thinking, like, why is he doing this? This is so out of character. It's so weird. And my thought was, he's doing it so like an idiot like me puts it on Twitter, and everyone can be like, oh, look, MJF's a total babyface. And then he can do something like come out in the press conference and be like, you all fell for that too, you know? Yeah. So I think it was stuff that was a lot more complicated than it was like ever meant to be if they had just never let him do that promo in LA, or even do their like being a face in Long Island. And I am glad he got rid of William Regal though. I don't think like we needed that in there. He can leave. But
well, and Regal was certainly a tool for like kind of like that definitive like I'm a heel now thing too. Like he was more of a prop in the end than it was like a true partnership. Tyler, you were like vocal, but very definitively vocal about your feelings on this promo. Go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I just said I didn't like it on Twitter. On my live reaction report I do every week for Dynamite, you can read my full paragraph stance on what it was. But a couple things. I mean, I think Stephanie's right on a lot of fronts here. That in kind of putting words in your mouth a little bit here, Steph. But like if you put this promo in a vacuum, I don't think it's a horrible promo, right? It's a heel being a heel. It's kind of the MJF we've seen before a lot of the time. So that is like, if you want to give a negative to that, you can. But it's everything leading up to this and what it entails down the line. Also, the crowd reaction. Like, it could have been me and that's how I want to talk to other humans about this. But to me, the crowd did not seem to care one iota once William Regal got hit by the hammer. I guess you could say, like, they thought it was so real that they were actually worried for him. I tend not to think that with hardcore fans in wrestling these days, that they believe that was real. So, just a lot of things there. As Zach and I were talking off air ahead of time, it's just like all the things that have led up to this where, will he or won't he on this heel run? And the most obvious solution for AEW is to have MJF win clean, be that babyface that people want to cheer. And now they're just going so upstream on this that every trick in the book has been played at this point. And when he's coming into Garland, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, and Ricky Starks is there to lose to MJF, presumably. Who's going to be cheered out of the two, the guy from Texas or MJF, the supervillain? I think it's going to be MJF, right? So all this is for naught when every place you go, for the most part, MJF's going to be cheered as a babyface until he calls the crowd fat, dumb, stupid, hillbillies, hicks, etc., which is not going to work. And just the crowd reaction not caring tremendously. What AEW has done to this point, it just is a cacophony of bad decisions coming home to roost. And it is not ideal for the future. Also, not to just totally be on the soapbox here, but MJF totally laying out in a super meta sense how this whole run's going to be, the use of the 2024 bidding war, all that stuff is just like, he said everything that I would say here today, which I think was his defense mechanism of like, here's how these marks hate MJF because he makes his opponents do the same thing to get every pay-per-view. He barely wrestles, all that stuff. Like, those are genuine and obvious flaws of his character that he is bringing out there and leaning into, which I don't think helps the character long term. So all of that, I wasn't a big fan of it, and I don't think that if you were to right now project a year out from AEW, if he's still champion, I don't think that's positive for the company. And as someone who has been more on the pro AEW no matter what side, this has me going more in the middle of this is not a good course of action. I'm really worried about the long-term trajectory of the upper part of the card in AEW because of this promo. It just had bad ideas all over it. Like you and Zach, this is the last thing I'll say. What you and I talk about all the time is like, if you were to ask Jon Moxley, would he give this the thumbs up or the thumbs down as a story? I think he'd give this a thumbs down and say this is some stupid shit. So that's how I'm using my barometer on how the story has gone thus far.
So fair enough. I mean, I think you're right in your where you critique is right. I was looking at this though in a different way. I wanted to see AEW pick a definitive direction for MJF and then just go all in trying to get there. Like I think they needed somebody to go out there and just like pick up all the pieces from all the madness of the last, however many months of kind of like unrest that there's been. And so you had like a lot that had to be like tied together. First of all, you kind of had the MJF babyface stuff, which he addressed kind of. Then you had the CM Punk stuff, which he addressed kind of. The stuff with the firm, which he kind of addressed. Then you had the William Regal relationship, and he kind of addressed that too. And it was like, I don't think he did a very good job addressing any of those things like outright. Like I think you can pick apart the fact that there's holes in what he said about Regal, and there's holes in what he said about the babyface stuff, and there's holes. But collectively though, when you look at it at the end, I think that he kind of like put a period at the end of this really weird time in AEW, and now they can try to go forward. He's a heel. William Regal's not involved. Bryan Danielson's going to be the next challenger for the world title, and you kind of like go from there and start anew. And it comes with problems. Like you can't ignore the fact that MJF is likely to get cheered still in a lot of ways. But it is, at least in my mind, I was looking for a definitive direction for the company to go with the world title picture after this. And I feel like for better or worse, they have that now, where it's not meta with Regal. It's not, you're not wondering about MJF from a storyline perspective, right? Like from a story perspective, you're supposed to hate this guy. And we didn't know going into Full Gear what that story was supposed to be. I think it was confusing. And then on top of that, I was looking for MJF to kind of change his promo style a bit so that he doesn't get cheers. And Stephanie, you alluded to that too, where it's like he kind of like bored everything down a bit, like knocked it down to the studs as far as like insults that people might laugh at, were kind of taken out of this promo. Just kind of just like funny mannerisms out, not included. Sports references were kind of not there. And he really just like broke it down to, okay, I'm going to take out anything or most things that might get me cheered and that may have gotten me cheered in the past. And so I gave that a thumbs up too. They've got to like keep going with this though. Like I want to see now, and Bryan Danielson really is one of the best guys for MJF to work with in this regard, because he's such a sympathetic babyface and he can fire up what he needs to. And so I think they're gonna work well together once they get there. The Ricky Starks kind of curveball, not curveball, but misdirection, that could be an issue moving forward. We'll have to see how that goes. And they're lucky they're in his hometown or near his hometown. Otherwise, they may have a problem. But it's like I guess where I'm at after saying all that. That long-winded rant is, I think the promo worked, but I didn't necessarily like what I was seeing. It was almost like a necessary evil to kind of finally put the last 4 months of AEW like away and go forward from there. Stephanie, go ahead and comment on it, on Tyler or my stuff based on what you had to sit there and subject yourself to for the last 10 minutes.
It's definitely been a really like weird time in AEW that we do kind of need to end. But it's funny to think that if you were watching, if you were just like watching the pay-per-view, say the pay-per-view is your season finale and you watch that and MJF is cheered by everyone and it's like first episode of the new season, like that's totally gone. And like that just, like it's like actually that whole bit didn't like really matter because he was a bad guy all along. That's like very quick to change the storyline. Like you wouldn't have your show end with like the villain like doing like the most heroic act or something and becoming a big baby face. And then like episode 1 they're just like, oh, forget about that, I was actually just bad all along. That would be bad storytelling. But it's kind of like the position like we ended up in. It's really hard to imagine though what he's gonna be like as a champion. What he was saying in his promo, like he doesn't really wrestle and stuff, and that's how we've seen him behave. But if you think about when he was in these other feuds, especially ones that went really long, like his Jericho one and the one with CM Punk, like he had other people around him, like the Pinnacle and Wardlow, to kind of do work for him and keep things going. So it's going to be really strange now if he is like a guy on his own doing that, not really wrestling much and stuff. I just don't know how they're really going to work that as well and not like make him kind of a really boring champion. And if he's not going to be someone that we see like defend much and stuff like that, they're really going to have to work on like getting the TNT title to mean something, or something like that can be actually used more on TV.
Yeah, that's a good point as far as like because the other part of this promo, I mean, it's gosh, man, I mean, there's so much to break down with it because I mean, he talked about so many things and tied up some loose ends, but also as we kind of are seeing in the chat here, there was a bit of a mission statement too of like, this is what my title reign is going to be like. I didn't read it as a meta statement really, but the mission statement of, hey, I'm the champion and you're not going to see me do really anything that a champion does. I'm not going to wrestle very much. The title is going to be on the line even less. It's a bit of a dangerous road to go down, I would say, Tyler, because like part of AEW and Tony Khan has made it this way is that, tune in every week because you're going to see good matches, like that's part of it. So to kind of come out and say like, hey, you're not going to see me wrestle matches is a way to get heat if it's brought up like in a narrative structure in a regular way, and if it's commented on, and if other wrestlers are talking about it, like I think you can make it work. But you have to have a lot of connectivity though, around your top stars for sure, but also really around the whole company, that there's got to be this kind of underlying factor of, oh gosh, yes, MJF's the champion and he's not here and he's not defending the title. You have to use that as a way to get heat on MJF. Otherwise, it's just like, it's more of like a Brock Lesnar type champion and less like, what Roman Reigns is doing with the belt. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I think Zach popped in here and made a good point that Roman's doing the same sort of thing. So I'm not really opposed to him not working a ton and not defending that belt a ton. I think that's work for Roman. I think it can work for someone like an MJF. So I'm not worried about that. That's why at the end of my last statement, it was like, when you project forward, do you have confidence in the story being told correctly? I don't, right? Mm-hmm. I have confidence in the Roman story being told correctly because they've done it for a period of time. And the last 4 months have been, as we've all agreed here, have been a little dicey. Obviously, there's circumstances surrounding that are out of control for what the original story was. But so that's my issue there. And then just if I can go back to the meta thing one more time, my issue that I think MJF is trying to make someone like me, who's on a show like this, be upset with him as a heel character, and that's the heel heat he's going for, as opposed to a more conventional heel heat that's going to get him make money for the company and wanting to watch people beat him. And I think that's a problem. So I don't really care either way. I just I guess so I'm playing into it kind of in what I'm saying here. And I'm also trying to point out why that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what I think personally about how he's handling this. But, him saying, Kingston and I forget who was in the middle, and then Danielson, right? Who was in the middle?
Starks. Kingston Starks, yeah.
But basically saying like, hey, Starks has a title match with me, but I'm bringing up Bryan Danielson's name, and he comes out here. He's telling you as a normal viewer that I'm for sure beating Ricky Starks. That's the meta stuff I'm talking about, where it doesn't matter. You know I'm going to beat him for sure. And you can say that, but it's kind of like the old school Ring of Honor days before it was bought by Tony Khan, where you always knew the result before, and I think that hurt the product. So that's a little in the weeds there, but I apologize what your original question was. I just want to make sure I got that out of the way. But that's really where I'm coming from here. Like, could this be good going forward? Yes, I think so. I think MJF has been a good heel in the past, and if you're committing to that and you move forward and he's a heel and they do creative things and make him interesting and make him, you want to pay to see him get beat on a pay-per-view, all of that can work tremendously, I think. And I think whether I liked the promo last night and whether I thought it was a good end to this period of time doesn't really matter. I think it can happen. I just don't have the faith in this moment that they're going to tell a good story is where I am there. I'm trying to think about anything else, but go ahead.
The debate on, Roman Reigns or MJF that's going on, but like kind of looking at the two, like title situations with neither guy kind of being around. Stephanie, to your point, like before MJF had like kind of like a bit of a backbone like Roman does with the bloodline, right? Like he had Wardlow with him. He had at one point Pinnacle and FTR and some other guys. Roman still has that. And not only does Roman have that, but the bloodline is like, a draw without Roman in their own right, So the Roman Reigns thing is like AEW has to find a way to keep MJF and the championship relevant when he's not going to be on TV or he's not going to be defending the title, like WWE has done for Roman with the bloodline. They don't have like anything as concrete as that right now, but I think that's the key, is to make it make the title and make MJF front and center, even if he's not going to be either A, on TV, or B, defending the title on a week-to-week basis. I don't know if they can pull that off. I really don't, but we'll see. Stephanie?
Yeah, it's going to be so hard for them to pull off anything like what's been pulled off with Roman right now, because with Roman, it doesn't matter at all that he doesn't wrestle, really, because the storyline with the bloodline is just so good. And it's not even to do with who the bloodline's opponents are. Like, you're watching it for what goes on between the bloodline themselves. So if Roman needs to take a week off, it's fine, because we're watching Sammy and Jay anyway, and Solo and Jimmy. And I don't know, I just feel with MJF, like the way he promos, he's an extremely good promo. His delivery is great, but sometimes his content isn't all there. And I think sometimes when he did the longer term feuds, like the Punk and Jericho ones, there were weeks where it was like quite repetitive and like running out of steam of what he was saying and repeating the same stuff. So I would worry if this might be kind of even worse now, if if he doesn't have a really good direction or a really like strong end goal. Like Bryan Danielson like will be a great opponent, but I'm not really sure he's the one to give like MJF like a great feud. I would love them to do something like, I would love them to actually use Eddie Kingston, because I think he could do it, but I have no faith they would ever give Eddie Kingston that spot, like considering the year Eddie Kingston has had of like the spots he's been put in, where you think, okay, well, once he gets done with this, then they're going to like give him a title match or a good feud or something. It's like, no, they just, I know they gave him his dream match, but they still won't give him anything like proper on the card. But I think it would like, and that's a risk, I think, to use someone like Kingston, because he's not got the name of Danielson to the more outside fan. But I think like taking a risk like that and putting MJF in a feud similar to the one he had with Punk, but just with someone who's more, AEW, would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Tyler, what do you think about Danielson as the next kind of, not the next challenger in terms of the schedule, but the next real challenger, as far as like a pay-per-view main event goes?
I I mean, on paper, it's great. On the AEW front, I mean, I hate to hark back on this consistently here. I feel like I'm the AEW hater out of all of us now, which is a shame to me. But like, also, whose character is an absolute disaster more often than not? It's Bryan Danielson, right? Like, he's still coming out of the heel tunnel. I know that's like not a thing or is a thing.
Oh, the tunnels.
You know, because like
tunnels is like they need to leave that in the background, especially when you had like stupidity, like how bad this Saraya feud was, and she's out there going, well, you know, like heels and faces don't matter, cheer for who you like. It's like you're in the company that has a heel and face tunnel.
Babyface tunnel, yeah. Yeah, yep.
Couldn't agree. And there was a break apart last night on the episode where somebody, it was the babyface, like they got pulled. It was Hangman, right? Or was it Moxley? He left out of the heel tunnel and Paige left out of the face tunnel. Like, am I supposed to read into that AEW? I would think not, but it's just like that. Those things there are just like unforced errors left and right. So I guess
please don't read into that. Don't read into that, people.
I've diverged us too far. I apologize, but you know, I think it could be a great match. It could be a great story. I don't know why. As there's another comment here that Danielson basically said from Steven that he doesn't want the belt. So why is this feud happening all of a sudden when it's really for the honor of William Regal? It's basically like two sons fighting for the love of their father is the story here, as opposed to the belt, which tells you, the direction of where the feud's going to end probably. But, they can do it. It's just, again, the background and my faith in the story being told effectively is hurt by the fact that both these characters have been up and down. And I think I know who they are now, but it's like kind of a, I just don't have the best idea of what's going to happen, and I don't have faith that it's going to be the most excellent story that they can tell because of that.
Yeah, but I think what has to happen here for this to get off the ground and going in a positive way, and not just a positive way for like this feud, but just a sustainable way for MJF as a world champion, is to like get to a real, like, and I've said this like numerous times. People are probably in the chat going, Zach, would you just shut up about this already? But MJF needs to be in just a regular pro wrestling feud, regular pro wrestling program. And you can do it with what they did last night. There's no meta. There doesn't have to be any kind of anything. You could just go with and tell the story based on what you saw on TV. Yesterday, you saw MJF turn on Steven, you turned on somebody who helped you win the title, who you have history with. You stabbed him in the back, you put him on the shelf, and now Bryan Danielson's there to kind of seek vengeance on you because he's a father figure. William Regal's a father figure to him. And you know what? I'm going to add a layer to it too. I'm going to take the world title off of you. You're not worthy of it, and I'm going to take it off. Like, build on that. There's your foundation, and build up from there. And I think if AEW can finally show that they can tell a story like that in a strong way and an effective way and in an entertaining way, then later on, when they do try to sprinkle in some like meta material, it matters much more, and it's more effective, and it's more shock value because you don't see it on a regular basis. To me, it's important for them to like get back to basics with this. I think Danielson can take them there, but they have to just want to do it. MJF is going to have to just want to do that, and I can't say that, I'm sure they will, but it seems like at least the pieces are in play to go that direction at this point. And we'll see if they go. Stephanie, you're not in your head. What
I agree, but I think that of all the people, like Danielson's the last person I'd probably choose to like put in that position of giving MJF a proper feud, because I just think it's so clear. Like, he has been badly booked in AEW, but I kind of blame him as well. I think this guy just wants to have wrestling matches. Yeah. Like, that's all he wants until his body gives up. And to place him as like in a big feud with the world champion that doesn't want to wrestle, I don't think Daniel Bryan's gonna have like the investment in that or want to like make it a great thing, because he's probably out there thinking, yeah, but I just want to wrestle. Like, Dante Martin or something on Dynamite like every week. I don't want to be in like 10-minute promo battles, like storytelling and all this. Like I'm just here to wrestle, because I think that's really just been the story of Brian in AEW. It's like the end of his WWE run. He just wanted to wrestle young guys. That's what he wants to do. I just don't think he's the guy for MJF.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, this is where like stuff like outside, like media stuff outside of like the show not helping him here, because he is out there. He not only is he having those kind of matches against like random even the one against Dax Harwood last night, like he's having that kind of stuff, but he's also openly talking about being like, yeah, I don't care about the title, I don't care about this, I just kind of want to do my thing. And this is where it's a bit of an issue. So like he has to he's got to sell it. I mean, I think he really had for it to work, he has to take responsibility for his end of it and go, all right, well, I said all that stuff, but I need to now use this Regal injury thing to circle on back to now I have to take the title from MJF. Now I do want it and I'm coming for it. But he can't just say it. He's got to really sell that for that particular story, I think, to make sense. I think you're exactly right on that. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading the chat here. Is this is William Regal not under contract at AEW? I just wonder what everyone's thinking here. Like, he's just back to WWE for sure. It's kind of the consensus here in the chat, and I just had not heard that, so I was curious both of your thoughts on that.
There's been conflicting news reports on what his status is. Some reports have indicated that he's done in December, and others earlier in the week were like, nah, he's got a 3-year deal. I haven't seen any updates on that. Stephanie, have you?
I felt like this on Observer Radio that Meltzer strongly hinted he was done. He was kind of like, yeah, I mean, he said 3 years, but it doesn't seem, and I can't say any more than that type thing. And it feels like he's done. It feels like he shouldn't be done, and Tony's probably just had his arm twisted because it's William Regal.
Yeah, maybe.
Just send him back where he belongs. But I think this is right off. I'm not going to miss William Regal, I'll be honest.
That's even worse in my opinion than for all the story. That I'm just the infrastructure and the attitude of AEW to either not sign a guy long term enough to tell a coherent story, or B, just to be like, oh yeah, you can go, whatever. Whatever the reason is, I'd love to hear that when it happens. But that is. It makes more sense why last night happened so quickly, because I thought that was a big moment that you could have done at another time to really, do the MJF thing and not microwave it. You could slow cook it over time to make it more impactful. So that makes sense. So that is that's something. So news to me here. That's why I guess I'm the.
Yeah, if MJF had been filming last week, they definitely would have done the Regal attack last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's Joel jumping in with the story of the story on William Regal. Belief among talent is that his deal ends in December. Meltzer says he's done. Then he said it's a 3-year deal. Then went back again, and PW Insider said he's now headed to WWE. So I would classify that as nobody knows really for sure what the hell's going on.
I'll DM Wade. I'll get you guys the real answer.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
go ahead.
So what was your original question? I'm sorry, I got in the weeds there. It was.
I don't remember. Yeah. I don't remember.
But yeah, so let's. I guess that's where I'm at there on that. So. The other
thing from Dynamite that I wanted to pick your guys' brains on, and then we'll pivot to some WWE stuff, was the direction of the Elite and the Death Triangle stuff. I mean, it's not a very. I wouldn't say that it's rooted in a story from a bunch of characters, but it's it's a best of 7 series. It's 2-1. For me, I would I really want to see moving forward, these guys have a different type of match with one another, just to see them do it. The stuff that they do in the ring for the matches thus far is super exciting, and there's and very athletic, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But the guys, Kenny Omega can have a match in which he does some really deep storytelling and psychology, and same thing with Pac and the Young Bucks and Penta and Phoenix too. So I don't necessarily. I mean, I'll watch them have like a high flying match any day of the week, but my hope is that they kind of change it up a bit. Here going forward and maybe slow it down. But I think it's going 7, Tyler, and I'm not sure after that.
Yeah, I think what you point out is good. I think that they had a match where they, the Bucks are grabbing the ropes, maybe obnoxiously more than anything, the tag ropes and tagging it legally and have that sort of thing. I think that'd be an interesting way to prove that they can do it for all the haters out there, right? At least that would be their mindset to excel at that. I was very happy they didn't do the contrived, down 3-0 and then win 4 in a row. I despise that immensely in the best of 7 series. So kudos to Tony Khan for booking it that way. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of these matches. I think all 3 have been good. The problem is when you go back and look at them, same thing. Like, what are the most recent ones, right? You have Sheamus and Claudio, Cesaro, and then you have you have Booker T and
was it Benoit?
Yeah. So those are the when you go back, can you pick individual matches out? Probably not on those as well. But these all kind of feel same to you, like you've said. So you'll remember the era of, hey, that month and a half that these guys wrestled every week or every other week on TV was something you can remember. So I think it's good on that front. I mean, all the matches are great, but yeah, I think where they go from there too is especially important. And is this the best for the Elite? This is probably going to be the end of their original trios run anyway. Sometime in mid-January or at the next pay-per-view. So knowing Tony Khan, he's got his booking planned out and it's kind of rigid. So are they not going to be champions so they can all go do their own thing that he had planned for them after that point anyway? I'm curious to see if that happens or if they get their original run after this. So I think that's the thing I'm really looking out for. I think they're more valuable as not a trios team with the titles. I think they're more valuable doing their own things, but I'm curious to see where they go there is the most important thing.
Stephanie, what do you think about this so far?
Well, I was never a fan of the trios titles being introduced because I thought it was totally self-indulgent on the part of Kenny and the Bucks because it was titles for them, and when they introduced it, it felt random. It felt like the moment had passed for trios titles, like the moment when we were all clamoring for them. Well, not me, but other people was maybe a year, before that, and then they introduce them, they win them, and then Brawl Out happens, so they have to relinquish them, and then that's kind of funny. But then they get to come back and do something even more self-indulgent and have 7 matches to win back the title. So, the matches have been good. I think that they've tried to make them unique, and I think in their heads they think they are. I think that's why on Dynamite they started by running up and attacking before the match and everything like that, so that it felt different to the one before. Obviously the one the week before was just trying to anger CM Punk and anyone that's ever loved him. In Chicago. I mean, all I can say about that match is thank you guys for proving he was right. But anyway, but yeah, it's difficult because I think that I do like the Elite, but I do think they are very self-indulgent people. And the way they do their matches, they are capable of great storytelling, but I think sometimes they'd rather just have fun. And that's what you see a lot of the time. And it's going to be, I mean, we're only 3 matches into it, but I think it's by the time we get to match 7, I think we're all probably going to be done with that. And there is a huge question of whether trios titles is the best use of Kenny and the Young Bucks. I don't think it is, but I think it's what will make them happy. So, go with it.
Yeah, well, go with it. I mean, but also at some point you got to I think you guys are both right. You can go with it, and then at some point you got to not go with it. And say to yourself and say to them, look, okay, you guys had your fun. Now we got to get you into some stuff that is going to move the needle, move the numbers, do a little bit of business. And they have to be, on board with that too, because there is value in a lot of Kenny Omega singles matches still that are out there for him to have. you still, you have an Acclaimed and Young Bucks feud that you can go to at some point down the road. You have the other FTR match with the Young Bucks that you can go to down the road. So like, there's a lot of stuff for them to do that I think would be important for AEW moving forward.
It's so interesting because Kenny, he just announced the match with Will Ospreay, at Wrestle Kingdom, and everyone is like so excited for that. And that's Kenny doing a singles match. But I felt like when Kenny was champion in AEW, I would say that was my probably least favorite like title reign, just because of all the silliness that Kenny brings along with him when he's in AEW, when he's got Don Callis and all this stuff going on. It just like got too like him as a person. He's just cheesy, and he just is who he is. But then he manages to have these great matches, and it's when he's outside of AEW. Like I think this match with Ospreay is going to be amazing, and all that stuff is like stripped away from him because he's not over there in Japan, coming out every week doing a promo with Don Callis and Brandon Cutler around him, and he's just like Kenny Omega, the great wrestler. But in AEW, he's got like free reign that really that is kind of counterproductive to how good a wrestler he is. He's just like, I want to go out there, I'll have all my buddies out there, it'll be fun, and it can take away from things. So maybe that's the only reason I would say maybe like keep him in this trio stuff for a while if that's what he's like wants to do, because it seems that when he's solo, he's allowed to have like a free reign that he probably like someone, Tony, does need to say like, hey man, you're one of the like best wrestlers of our generation, if not the best. Like if you could maybe like lean in to that a little bit more than some of the other stuff, that would be really great for business.
For sure. And okay, now I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, because when I saw that promo that he cut, like that they cut into the show with in New Japan to kind of announce that match was happening, I was like, man, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm looking around wondering, where is that Kenny Omega? Like, that's the Kenny Omega that I would want at this point. Like, that promo was so good. That was like, he was serious. He was like buttoned up from like the way he looked like a star, and he presented like a star, and he really like leaned in on his credibility. And it's like, we've gotten bits and pieces of that, and we've seen like a little bit here, a little bit there, but never like that collective presentation that we saw in that vignette. And I'm like, man, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm going, man, okay, what's happening here? Why are you that Kenny Omega over there? And what do I need to do to make that happen on my television on a week-to-week basis? Maybe if I did that, or you were able to bring that for me on a weekly basis, the 870 would be, 970 or 1 million. I mean, you never know. And so I was watching that going, man, this is some really good stuff, but we just don't see it enough week to week from Kenny Omega. Okay, Tyler, over to you. Rant over.
Yeah, so it's more that 0.26 is, I think, more the issue when you're usually getting a 0.38. I don't know if there's anything on last night that would affect that to that level. So that's not great. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing I've been saying directly and indirectly is the lack of institutional control, right? Like, if the company was started like, hey, you are, you're going to treat this company with respect, like Kenny respects wrestling in Japan, right? I mean, he loves the cultural, he's a Japanese citizen, right, for a reason, and he respects how it is viewed there as a sport. And over here, he is, indulgent. When he came over for ROH back in the day, he was indulgent, and him and the Bucks and Paige and all them had a great time. And that's been more of that style of Kenny than anything. So I think that's, where it comes from the top. And, would I be able to do that if I ran a wrestling company? No, that's why I don't run a wrestling company, because I'd probably run it just like Tony Khan, where I'd be nice to everybody, let them kind of do what they want, and things would blow up in my face. So I say that this out of a place of love. I know how it is to be in that, not in that spot exactly, but I think I would run it very similar to Tony Khan. So I have sympathy for him, because he's probably a really nice guy, and things are not going well on that front. But Zach, I'm not going to let you leave this episode of Dynamite unless you're going to talk about Bow Wow or Drill Sergeant Drill Sergeant Daddy Ass, because those were highlights of the show for me personally. So
Please tell me you're kidding.
Hopefully, you know my
Bow Wow.
sarcasm by now.
Yes,
Jeez,
I mean, okay.
I think a lot of this with the rating, a lot of this like the middle of the show had a lot of this kind of stuff, and I think it was not like super ideal. So I bring it up facetiously, but just want to.
I'm surprised by the rating, guys. I mean, like the MJF thing alone, I thought would, create like an uptick, in viewership of some kind. I just because of the it's a first time thing. It's the first time as champion out there in the middle of the ring with a microphone. And I go back to, what do we think that number would be if MJF was returning, yesterday as like this heroic babyface who won clean, like he said, and with the fans on his side? I think you'd have a more excited audience, a core audience group, if that were the case. And I think we're seeing some of that play out here. And also I think you're there is I don't have like the year-to-year comparison, but usually this holiday time is not great for ratings too. So factor that in. But you put enough of that stuff together, and you lose audience that you may or may not get back. And so you don't want to do that. So I'm a little surprised by the number being as low as it is in the demo. Either you want to comment on that? Forget it.
Ratings are.
It's an American thing. You can say it's that.
Sure.
I remember we talked about we used to talk about how we got that 2 million, and now it just feels like how did we keep the first that we once had?
Yeah. Man, as far as the Cargill Bow Wow stuff goes, I talked about this on the preview show yesterday. To me, it's just completely unnecessary. Like, I think it's just far below Jade Cargill's potential, and not even potential, but what she is right now for AEW in the company. Like, I think she means a hell of a lot more to the company than, okay, let's try to get some mainstream question mark notoriety because of Bow Wow. Like that, he's not mainstream. So it's like, what is the purpose here? So I think she's like defining herself down by kind of being involved in this angle. Now, at the same time, I don't think it'll hurt her either. I think she's a strong enough character where she can pull this off, like dust Bow Wow away at some point, and then move on, and everything will be fine. But it's just like, we talk about it all the time, like the opportunity cost. She's working with Bow Wow right now, and who else could she be working with that would be more intriguing and more enticing? So I am out on that. And the Acclaim thing, how is Billy Gunn in 2022? Like, even on the little graphic where they say the Acclaim's going to be on Rampage, it's like Billy Gunn is like front and center, and then like Bowens and Castro are kind of like behind him, and I'm just like, damn it, this guy has got something figured out. Him and Jeff Jarrett, man.
Yeah. I think you got it. Yeah, I think he's also got the, it's what Stephanie was saying about Kenny Omega and the indulgent, right? The Acclaimed are in the same category to me at this point, where if you could just rein them in a slight bit like you could with Kenny, I think they would both be more maximized as acts on television. So that's why I bring that up. Yeah, I mean, Jeff Jarrett and Billy Gunn, if you want to like make it in the business, make it a career, if you're not as talented as your peers, I think you would learn under those two, and you'd be good to go. So that's a backhanded compliment, but it's also a compliment, right? I mean, like, they've done it. So I would tutor under them in 1 second. So this is an open invitation for them to tutor me in this.
Stephanie, did you like the Cargill stuff with Bow Wow, or not so much?
Wow, that segment was so bizarre. Just like, on the whole, like, firstly, like, Jade looked amazing. She looked the best anyone ever looked on TV. But then the segment was so strange. Like, she comes out and she's talking about the other girls hanging out with Kiera Hogan, which I don't know when that was alluded to or that was actually shown or anything.
Yeah, real quick. So was that on like a dark or was it on Rampage, Tyler?
Well, it was on a Rampage, but essentially
was it?
Yeah, it was like an offhanded. So Mark Sterling came in at some point and was like handed Kiera Hogan a paper that said she was fired, basically, and that's what got TV so far.
That's okay. All right.
Yeah, I saw that happen, but then she said that the other girls were still hanging out with her on Dynamite.
I didn't see that. Yeah,
so I was like, okay, I don't know how we're meant to know.
So
that.
She must have just been saying that because I don't think they showed that happen ever. So
it was so strange, and then she looks so good, and she's talking herself up like I'm the biggest star here out of anyone. I look the best. I'm the best, and she was doing it so much that this never usually happens to me. I actually thought, are we going to get Sasha or someone come out here? Because the way she's talking herself up was so much. I thought, are we finally going to get the other woman that can actually go toe to toe with Jade? No, we got Bow Wow on his phone. And I don't even totally understand this Bow Wow thing. From what I remember, he fancied Jade and she rejected him, and now then she went to his concert, and now he's going to sue her forever. It was strange. He's like, oh, I'm not on tour anymore, so I've got all this free time, and so what, he's going to stalk her? I don't even know what the storyline is. All I remember is Bow Wow once did a tweet that he liked Jade, and it turned into this, where this man is now going to follow her around, and obviously it can't lead to a match. But then, what is Bow Wow going to find female representation? Well, that better not be someone great like Sasha, because that's a crap way to come in. We've already had.
Oh my god.
We've had Snoop Dogg. This is surely a downgrade to have Bow Wow, but I do think it's beneath Jade. I think that she has such a star aura, and I think sometimes Tony, especially with the people he uses, if you're any kind of level of celebrity, he's down for it, and I think that you should be more selective. And unless he's trying to do a really intricate storyline about men with fame and money sliding into the DMs of women and the dynamics at play and Jade trying to get away from him, I don't think he's trying to do that. I think he just wants a rapper on TV, and it's not even a good or relevant one. So I think it's a waste for Jade, but at the same time, she doesn't have a female competitor to go against, because we're approaching her 50th win now, and there's no clear direction of who it should be. We're not in a situation where we're watching another woman on the rise and thinking she should be the one to dethrone Jade. That's not happening. So I guess just feud with Bow Wow.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if only you could book a different story, that'd be the thing to do, which you could. I think, I mean, the only way this has any semblance of an entertaining, endpoint is, I think Jade just has to destroy Bow Wow on TV. I mean, I don't buy Sasha Banks coming in. That can't happen in this story.
No.
That just cannot go that way. I'll believe Sasha in AEW when I see it, because I think she's going to probably go back to WWE. But I certainly would not have her debut alongside Bow Wow in this.
But Tony probably would, though.
He might. I mean, he might. That's not good. Yeah. What did you guys make of Jon Moxley and Adam Page yesterday? Kind of reigniting their feud. Pretty simple, which is the one thing I liked about it. It's simple, to the point. Hey, we're gonna fight. Intensity, 2 alphas, boom, put them in a ring together and go. But once again, you kind of have these 2 babyface guys that are wrestling each other, and now you got to pick, as fans who you're going to cheer. Tyler, did you like that? Did you like that in its own right, and then did you like it as a next step, and the next thing for Moxley and Page to be involved with away from the championship?
Yeah, so I liked it. I liked the intensity of it. I thought it felt as real as anything on the show was. I mean, again, as I said at the top of the show, I think the Moxley, like, would John Moxley approve or disapprove of a story, I think has been a good barometer of what is good, what is working, what's not working in AEW. And I think obviously he approved of this. And yes, they're both faces, so that's confusing, but this is a blood feud, and it makes sense. It's based in reality where Moxley, gave Page a concussion and took him out of action for a period of time. So two guys fighting over that makes sense to me. It's not for a belt. It's not for their legacies, whatever. It's just a fight that you can probably do on Winter's Coming. It could be the co-main event. And if it's something like that, totally for it. And you have a winner, you have a loser, they move on. Probably Moxley goes on vacation after losing to Page, I would say. And then it sets Page up to be, elevated back to where he was before. So all of that I'm for. If it's for the world title, I don't like it because it's confusing. I don't know what the characters are, et cetera, but it's more low stakes, and it's based in some reality that happened in the ring. Which, as a longtime viewer, I appreciate that my, me viewing that episode 8 weeks ago is, I can remember that and apply that to this. So I think it's good booking for where it is on the card.
Cool. Yeah. Stephanie, how about you?
I thought it was great to see Hangman back, but I did kind of forget that he was gone, which is a really bad sign. Because when that happened, the concussion, it was like really scary for a lot of people watching in the moment, and then they kind of didn't like follow up properly with like much on it, and then I guess they're now going to have to craft a storyline, because at the end of the day, like, we know there was just an accident in the match that led to Hangman getting a concussion, but there wasn't really much going into it. Like, that's kind of the real life stuff that we know, so it'd be interesting to see like how they work that. But I think it's a good feud for Moxley and for Hangman too.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think I hope they stay away from the idea though that like Moxley, took Page out, right? Like, because really he just won the match. I mean, like, you're supposed to be fighting in the match, and we all know that something happened and that it wasn't normal, but really Moxley just won the match. So I hope they stay away from that and just get it down to like, hey, we're gonna fight again, and Moxley's gonna give him another shot, another match, and keep it simple. I don't know that you could hold this thing off until March 9th, though. That's a long way away. Like, you may need to run this on TV at some point.
Well, I think it's on Winter's Coming. I think it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I hope. I don't. It's not announced though. I don't believe.
You gotta watch Rampage for that.
Oh, do I really? That's what you're.
No, I mean, they're like, there's more great matches on Rampage. Like,
oh, that's right. Yes. I just
Twitter as well. So thank you.
But that's probably the right call, to be honest. Like just because March 9th is a long way away. That's a long way. All right, guys. Let's with the few minutes we have left here, let's pivot to WWE. They had a pretty darn successful Survivor Series event, War Games, 2 War Games matches, and then a couple other singles matches on the show. And we don't have a SmackDown to take a look at here, but we do have Monday Night Raw. I thought this was a pretty good episode of Monday Night Raw, top to bottom. I think that they got a lot out of War Games. I thought the characters that are like supposed to be in focus, in WWE right now, got the right shine. And you add into that they get a huge jolt of star power with Becky Lynch coming back. It made for an entertaining watch across the 3 hours. So I liked Raw, and I guess that there's different pieces of it that I like more than others. But what did you think of the fallout, Tyler, of Survivor Series this week on Monday night?
Yeah, I liked it as well. I think it was a stronger episode of Raw. Probably not. I don't know, what was it, like 8 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, where I was like, oh man, Raw is like really watchable now. It's pretty. And then it kind of went downhill again. I think it's more on that the latter, like, hey, this is pretty watchable. Now it's still 3 hours, right? It's much better to consume, not live, I would say, still as a consumer. But you know, I thought it was good. I enjoy the Austin Theory stuff and the Seth Rollins stuff, obviously, as I've talked about here. I think that was with that shock win there. It's good to see them, you know, go nose to nose and have intensity, et cetera. And, you know, Becky being back is super helpful as well. And so, yeah, I thought it was a solid episode of the show. And, you know, I don't know, you know, Friday's all about, I guess tomorrow is all about, you know, Sammy and celebrating and all that sort of stuff. I think that'll be a good time as well. But Raw feels more consequential to characters, where they're going, where they're setting up for their WrestleMania run, then SmackDown's going to feel more celebratory and the bloodline kind of dancing and being all that stuff. So I think Raw's going to be better this week, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a good follow-up to a good pay-per-view, and it's good to see Becky back. And yeah, the Austin Theory stuff was good as well. Not too keen on Dexter Lumis. But
maybe that's over though, so that'd be a good thing.
Hopefully, yeah. And it was, you know, good to see Kevin and the Bloodline stuff too. I think as long as you put something to do with the Bloodline on a show, it really does elevate it, you know, and get you through.
I had this thought, like when I was watching Raw this week, in regards to the Bloodline, and it happened. I had the thought when they were like walking down like the hallway or whatever when they started the show, and I was thinking to myself, like, do you know when you're in this like historically all time of a story, you know, or an angle? Like, I'm trying to think back to like '97 NWO when I'm like, you know, did I think about it then as I do now, which is like, wow, that was like just a game changer of an angle, like big time. And I think you realized how fun it was, but you didn't necessarily know what the impact of it was going to be long term. And I was having the same thought about the Bloodline, like this story with the Bloodline is going to go down as one of the best that WWE has done, especially like in the modern era, you know, where you have weekly episodic television, you know, on a multiple times of every single week. And I just had this thing of like, all right, where will it fall in history of like just like great storytelling, great characters, a good faction, a top champion who's protected. I just think that it's clicking on all cylinders right now, and I think we're watching like collectively just an all-timer of a story, and that's pretty darn fun if you ask me.
Yeah, they've absolutely like struck gold with this storyline, and I think that you're right, is something we're all gonna look back on. And I think no matter what else like happens, the other storylines going on in the show, whether or not they might be that great or whatever, I would say that secondary to what's going on with the Bloodline, like I do enjoy the Rhea and Dominic stuff. I think like it's just really, you know, it's good. It's a bit silly, but it's really good. But I think we're gonna like look back on it like how we do with the NWO stuff and the stuff that was really hot in '98 in WWE, and you kind of forget about all the stuff that was like trash around it. You just remember those great bits.
Right.
That's how we're gonna feel about the Bloodline, and it's so interesting that WWE, who I think have been really lacking in having good, strong stories the past God knows how many years, have finally hit on this absolute gold at the same time when there is another company that put on like these great wrestling matches. They put on these great shows, but they haven't really hit that one like catch fire storyline how the Bloodline, you know, have. And it's kind of like, I don't know if in the end it's going to be AEW or like the band that put out this amazing album but nothing really charted, and WWE had this one massive hit that was on the radio like all the time and we all know every word to, and like no one remembers what the other album tracks were. But gosh, that song, like we're never gonna forget it, and it's hard, and that's why, like going back to what you're saying about MJF, like he's such an amazing talent. Like he's incredible, and what's incredible about him is that he's so young and that you're starting from scratch. Like he hasn't been to WWE. Like he is your guy, and if you can just get him in that one hot thing that catches fire, then it will be like when the NWO was good and Austin was on the rise, and we have two like super hot things to watch.
I think you're right on the money with that. I mean, and I wonder, Tyler, like how much of it has to do with like with star power. Like, there's people in the Bloodline story that are playing their parts, right? Like, Sammy's doing his thing and Solo's doing his thing and the Usos are doing their thing, Paul Heyman. But Roman Reigns, it all revolves around Roman Reigns, and it revolves around him as he's the biggest star in the company. It revolves around him as the champion, and like that, I think you're missing in AEW. You're missing that type of star. You've got a lot of stars that are almost there, I think, or maybe if they were just the presentation was tweaked a bit, you could get them there. But it's like they just don't have somebody like that to carry a storyline like that, or at least they don't have somebody presented in the right way. I think there's a lot of guys who can do it, but you look at like the major differences between the shows, and there's a lot of them, but a big one is that idea of, well, the biggest star is holding the biggest title and is involved in the biggest storyline. Sometimes that's all you need, to get things righted.
For sure. And to echo Stephanie's point, like if we're going to inverse here, where the Bloodline's NWO, right? That is, WCW being the premium brand at that time, and then WWE came up, like you said, with a bunch of young stars. So if history is going to repeat itself, I would hope that it would. Then yeah, we'll see a potential run here, and Tony Khan is like going to see this rating today. He's going to be more freaked out than the three of us were about it, I would say. And
yes,
where you're not the hot, young, up and coming brand that, as my dogs are upset about me saying this. But now I think he's at a point. Let me just someone else talk for a second. I'll mute. They'll be done.
I think I don't know where Tyler was going on that, but Stephanie, I think the idea is that you got to find that. You got to it can't just be really good matches. I mean, that's what I think AEW certainly brings to the table, and it's an entertaining watch every week, like no question. But you got to have it revolve around something though for those matches to really take hold and matter. I don't want to get too much in Tyler's head, but maybe that's the way you were going. That's the direction you were going, Tyler.
I didn't hear you, but I'm just saying, like, Tony Khan's got to pivot, I think, in a lot of things that he's doing, and there's a lot of talent there, and there's all the potential in the world for AEW to have like a second peak year and be that company that it can be, tell great stories, and compete with WWE. So I know I've been kind of down on AEW. I do that out of love. I critique wrestling. Yes. I love wrestling. I think we all do, right? So just to echo Stephanie's points, I think they've all been spot on in that comparison front. And then on where we are at the golden age, like we are for sure getting a Conrad Thompson has a podcast called The Bloodline, and Paul Heyman is chatting him up about why Sami Zayn. Tell me about that. That's how we're in a golden era, when there's going to be a podcast series about the whole run of the Bloodline, and I can guarantee you that'll happen. So that's how we're in a golden era.
Yeah. I want to talk about Austin Theory, and then we will ride off into the sunset here. I'm a big fan of what he's doing. I'll caveat everything I'm about to say, of course, with there is supremely not good allegations of Austin Theory stuff outside of his work in WWE. So I stipulate to, obviously, that if there's something to be taken care of on that front, it should be taken care of at all costs. From a television perspective, though, I mean, I don't know. That dude is money right now. Like him being able to kind of turn up the volume on it, being a serious, like credible wrestler, a guy who has a little bit of like a little bit more danger in those eyes than he did before, where it was kind of like he was a bit of a deer in the headlights, kind of happy to be up there. Wow, he's working with Vince McMahon. And now it's like, not like he's in it for something. And I think he's carrying these segments. He's carrying them, and also, being able to work with the best on the show with someone like Seth Rollins, and looks like he belongs in the ring with those guys. So if you're looking at like potential big time players 2025 for WWE, I mean, I think Austin Theory is going to be at the top of that list. And I had this question on my notes here to ask you guys. I don't know that we have the time, but if you want to touch on it, maybe go ahead. But is there anybody like outside of like the Kenny Omegas and the John Moxleys, like the up and coming talent in AEW, would you be trading any of them for, if you're WWE, would you trade Austin Theory for any of, like, for Jungle Boy Jack Perry at this point, or Darby Allin at this point, or Ricky Starks? Like, think about that next level, that next tier of guys who are going to be the faces of the company 2025, 26, 27. Based on what we know right now, are you trading Theory if you're Levesque for any of those other guys? So I'm high on it. I think it's good stuff. I think he's holding his own, and it's helped. I think it's really helped Raw because they've got another guy to lean on to fill some good time. Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no off the top of my head on this tier. I mean, I think it's a little. I'd have to see the tier list specifically. Like, obviously for MJF, I'm trading him.
Sure.
Like
Yeah, that's not what I mean.
Yeah, I know. If it's like, if I get the Acclaimed, maybe both of them, I might trade both of them to get them down a little bit, but we'll see. I don't know. But maybe, is Adam Page, I guess, is a former champion. He's not on that tier list. So I'd have to see that to make a decision there. But yeah, I think Theory has been presented great. I think also one thing to note here, and this is not insidery stuff, just, from what I can see, he is Dan Hudson. Yeah, I think Triple H would love working with, you need to do Doink the Clown. I think he'd be using that role tremendously, actually. But you need Wes Santino every 15 years. But having seen him, Theory is a guy who will do what is asked of him, obviously, right? Like, Vince leaves, then Triple H kind of runs him through the mud creatively, right? And you would think that he took it well backstage, took direction, etc. So that tells me he is a guy who is willing to do what it takes to advance in this industry, which, having that mindset goes about as far as having the charisma and the talent to do so as well. So I think he's got those intangibles of wanting to get there. And, I've been impressed of what he's done post Vince McMahon as a character and as a worker. So yeah, I think he is a rising star. I like that you do also add about 6 months every time, Zach, that you talk about him being a big star. I think last time you said 18 to 24 months, and now you're pushing it all the way to 2025. So, another 3 weeks, by 2035, he's going to be a big star in WWE. So.
Yep, by 2050, he'll be in the main event of WrestleMania. Yeah. No, I do. I don't know why I do that either. I don't know. It's like time.
I think you're just acting like, hey, I know there's things that have said, there's allegations. I'm just going to keep pushing this further down the road, so I don't have to deal with it.
Well, yes. I mean, it's important to. I want to bring it up because it's not something I think you should forget. But it's also once you call that out, there's not really other analysis you can do on that. It's just, that's bad, really bad, and if he needs to get in trouble for it, he should. But I think it's worth reminding people that does hover around him with what he does. Stephanie, are you in on the Austin Theory stuff?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade Austin Theory if I was WWE. I really agree with Tyler. He's definitely someone that's shown himself to be he wants to be in WWE. He understands the system. He understands what you have to do. He was put in such a strange position early on in his career with this Vince McMahon thing, Vince McMahon taking a liking to you, Vince McMahon wanting to work with you when you'd previously been in NXT as this little boy character, younger brother character, and then all of a sudden Vince, this is the guy that he latches onto. You just, I mean, it seems so random at the time, but you just, you can't predict Vince's brain, who he's going to go with, and he went with Austin Theory, and then And that's usually like not a good thing for people, because remember like what happened to Drew McIntyre. He was like the chosen one, and then it's not necessarily like Vince liking you isn't necessarily the best thing. And then Triple H comes along, and it definitely felt like he was being knocked down a couple of pegs. But I think, as Tyler said, he took it well, and he kind of bounced back. He looks like someone that's willing to do whatever is asked of him, and he does have a charisma, and he can really hold his own way better than he should be able to, honestly, like with guys like Seth Rollins. So I think he's, there's guys his age in AEW that are, better than him at certain things. But as far as someone that's like perfect for WWE, I would totally keep him.
Yeah, that's a really good call out to make too. Like, you may not like want Austin Theory in GCW or even in AEW. Like, he may not fit, but for what WWE needs from a top star, like that's what he's delivering, and I think it's a really important thing to call out for sure. All right, guys, let's call it a day. That was a fun show. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. You do a ton of tremendous work with your own YouTube channel and just a multitude of other great things. Take a second and plug to our audience how they can follow you on social media, where they can find you on YouTube and elsewhere.
Sure. Follow me on Twitter at Stephanie M. Chase, and that's the same on Instagram and TikTok. And then on YouTube, it's Stephanie Chase Wrestling. And thank you guys so much for having me. I had such a great time. As I said, I'm always watching the show. The only downside to this is I now have nothing to watch tonight because I've just been on the show. So I gotta find some other content to watch during dinner. But it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching us when you do, and we'll definitely make sure to do this again really, really soon for sure. Tyler, always a pleasure, my friend.
I love leaving you on an island, Zach. That's what I do. So sorry.
Yeah,
I know my cue, and I just let you sit there and die. So, yeah,
it's all right.
Here as always, and yeah, it was great. It was super fun every day, and I'm glad to be the AEW hater of the group now all of a sudden. So how the table?
Yeah, wow. I was just gonna say, how the tables have turned, and interesting times. We'll be talking about all of it here on all the Torch channels: YouTube, PWTorch.com, podcast, VIP feed. Thank you guys for watching. Stephen, Sean, Richard, Azan, Dr. Ross, and everybody else. Appreciate you guys being here with us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Subscribe to Stephanie's great content as well. You'll be very, very happy that you did. We'll be back live tomorrow to preview SmackDown, which should be a fun show. So we'll drop a time on Twitter sometime tomorrow morning to let you guys know when to listen. And yeah, we'll be here. But until then, we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.